The silence in Elias's house was a physical presence. It settled in the dust motes, dancing in the fading evening light, and pooled in the empty chair across from him at the small kitchen table. A knife made a dull thump against the worn cutting board. A rhythm for one. He reached for a sprig of rosemary, rolling it between his thumb and forefinger. Music played softly from a small radio on the counter, a tune they'd once danced to in this very kitchen, spinning clumsily until they collapsed against each other in breathless laughter. The sharp, piney scent bloomed in the air, and suddenly the silence shattered. The only sound was the deliberate tick-tock of the grandfather clock in the hall, counting out seconds that felt identical to the thousands that had come before. The only music was the ticking clock and the bubbling of the stew he was making for himself. He had all the same ingredients, the same recipe they had used for 30 years. But he knew, with a hollow certainty, that it would not taste the same. It couldn't. The key ingredient, the one that made the flavor sing, was her laughter. The kitchen was no longer dim and quiet, but ablaze with golden light and sound. He sat at the table, in his usual spot, the empty chair opposite him a gaping hole in the fabric of the evening. He ate slowly, not tasting the food. The carrots were soft, the meat was tender, but the meal was bland. Lena was there, her laughter echoing off the bright yellow walls as she dodged his attempt to steal a piece of freshly baked bread. On the mantelpiece sat a framed photograph. It was of the two of them, taken on a long-ago anniversary. He was smiling, and she was laughing, her head thrown back. And there, just visible if you knew where to look, was a faint white smudge on the tip of his nose. He was chopping carrots for a stew, a solitary, methodical task. The scent was a key. Unlocking a door in his mind, he tried to keep shut on weeknights. He raised a hand and gently touched his nose, half expecting to feel the flour. Ah! She'd chided, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Not until the stew is ready, you old wolf. The air was thick with her presence, the scent of her rose-water perfume mingling with the rosemary on his hands and the yeast from the bread. A simple, thoughtless touch that had meant everything. He'd been chopping carrots then, too, but his movements were clumsy, hurried by happiness and the desire to finish so they could simply sit together. He remembered the feel of her hand as it brushed his while they both reached for the salt. "You're getting that all over the floor," she'd said, pointing at a stray piece of carrot. But there was no malice in it, only affection. He'd leaned in to kiss her, and she had met him halfway, smudging a dot of flour from her baking onto the tip of his nose. The memory was so vivid he could almost feel the phantom powder on his skin. It was a moment of perfect, ordinary joy, a Tuesday evening that had felt as bright as any holiday. A sizzle from the pot on the stove pulled him violently back to the present. The golden light was gone. The kitchen was gray. He scraped the carrots into the pot and stared as they disappeared into the simmering broth. He served himself a single portion, leaving the rest in the pot on the cold stove. After washing his single bowl, single spoon, and single pot, he walked into the living room. Elias looked at his own reflection in the dark glass of the photo frame. He saw a tired old man with lonely eyes. There was nothing there. The clock ticked on, measuring the space between one memory and the next.